Good day to all brothers and sisters. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to continue with the Recollections series. This was started 2 years ago in 2023. After 2 sessions, we did not continue. So today we will continue with Recollections number 3. Recollections is basically a series of explanations and explorations of the lessons delivered by Bhante Punnaji. And of course, I added some of my own material in it, especially the scientific stuff and some elements from psychology, cognitive psychology, and a few other things, as well as neuro-linguistic programming. So today's Recollections number 3 is about mental proliferation. Without further ado, let's get on with this. Now, before we start talking about mental proliferations, I need to very briefly touch on what was covered in Recollections 1 and then Recollections 2. So in Recollections 1, we spoke about the 3 parts of mental experiences. So the mind is working in such a way that it is going through the experience of whatever it is perceiving and cognizing, right? So it perceives from the environment, it cognizes, and then produce thoughts, intentions, and actions that lead to our karma. And 3 parts of mental experience basically talks about the Vijnana, Mano, and Chitta. These are the 3 words used by the Buddha. And many teachers, they don't seem to separate between Mano and Chitta. So today I'm going to cover how these 3 words are different. I've already spoken about it in Recollections 1, so I will just very quickly skim through it. The first word that the Buddha used to describe the mind is Vijnana. This is really the process of perception as explained by Bhante Punnaji. This is how we perceive and become aware of what was perceived through our sense organs. Just an awareness of objects from the sense organs. There is no thinking about it, there is no reflections on it, and so on. It's just awareness of perceived sense objects, okay? Mano is cognitive process. The mind actually works with 2 minds side by side. The cognitive mind, which is the thinking mind, consciously thinking mind, and the affective process, which is often called the emotional mind. So these 2 are side by side working and interacting with each other, sometimes interfering with each other. So Mano is the cognitive process, the thinking part, and Bhante calls this cognition and conception. And then Chitta is the affective process, Bhante calls mood and temperament. Most people would then refer to this process as emotional mind. Now, as far as Vijnana is concerned, the process of perception, it is just perceiving sense objects. So there's a difference between perceiving and perception. Perceiving is picking up the sense stimulations from the environment. So when light enters the eye, we see. Sound enters the ear, we hear. Odor enters the nose, we smell, right? And flavors come into contact with the tongue, we taste. And tangible objects come into contact with our body, we touch. And that's all it is. Vijnana is just sensing these 5 physical sensations from the environment plus the mind, Mano Vijnana. So there is also the 6 sensual realms. So 6 sensual fields altogether. So we're going to take a look at how they interact today. Mano is really about cognizing. Cognizing means thinking in a way, you could say, right? Cognizing with the process that the Buddha called Vitakka Vichara. So thinking, cognizing. And not only just cognizing, it is basically cognizing with categorized identification of the perceived image. So Vijnana perceives something and an image arises in the mind. Mano then interpret, identify, right, by assigning name or label. So this process of identification and categorization, this is called papancha, normally called papancha. And the mental image is rupa, and then a label or a name is given to the mental image of that object that was perceived, and that is nama. And this is basically referring to how perception of sense objects are being interpreted. Not only that, the mind, the mano part of the cognitive process, also cognizing the experience with concepts. How does it do that? Conceiving concept, thinking about what is going on, how should we deal with it, right? And then come choices, concepts and choices. Right? At the same time, as mano is processing every sensation with interpretation, the chitta reacts to it. The chitta is the affective process. It's called affective because it gets affected. That's why it's called affective process. So Bhante calls this mood and temperament. Mood is referring to how you feel about it. You know, you're in a good mood because you feel good. So how you feel about what has been perceived, that's mood. And what are you going to do about it, your urge and your reaction to it, that's temperament, your temper, okay? So chitta is this affective process giving rise to affectionate mood, which is our emotional feeling, and then urges to react. This is part of the temperament. And then finally, the reaction is often personalized. We have a tendency to personalize everything that's going on, thinking like, oh, this is affecting me. Right? This is about me. What he said is hurting me. So the I, me, or mine becomes strong, so that because of this self-centeredness. So this is how these three work. So this reaction, emotional reaction, is tanha. Right? And we react to how we feel about what's going on. And this arises leading to mood and temperament. And at the same time, the personalization process is called upadana. And this is leading to the notion of a self-centered existence. And that is bhava tanha. So that's all we basically covered in Recollections 1. Right? In Recollections 2, we touched on the interaction between Vijnana and Mano, and the topic was from perception to conception. And basically the important thing is the Buddha's teaching is always experiential. So we have to understand what's experiential, what is existential. We have to realize that there is an interconnect between existential and experiential. But the Buddha's teaching, the way the Buddha taught, and as explained by Bhante, Pandit Punnanji is also doing the same thing. Everything Bhante explains to us and everything that Bhante translates, they are very much aligned with experiential. And what's the difference? So when we talk about an object, we call it an entity, something that exists. This is an existential concept when we talk about entity, okay? And that refers to physical objects that occupy space and time. And existence has a notion that it is permanent because it exists, it's there, right? And that's it. We look at something that exists, we say, oh, that's it. So there is a notion that the existence is something permanent. But what is experiential then? Well, activity, something going on, a process, an activity. This is an experiential. It's the only way we know an activity is going on is that we experience it. That's why it's called experiential. So an activity is an experiential concept referring to the process of something happening. When something happens, it has to start or rise. So there's a rising part. And whatever rises has to fade away. So it is a continuous process of rising, fading, rising, fading. So rising and fading away. And therefore, this has the notion that it is impermanent, anicca. So let's now look at all the teachings from experiential perspective, right? First, we talk about rupa. Now, I want to point out one important thing. Many people follow the popular translation. I don't want to say traditional, I don't want to say outdated, I just say popular. Most people, it's popular because most people follow this. They think of rupa as a physical object. But in reality, when the Buddha spoke of rupa, actually he was referring to what we have perceived of that rupa, the mental image arising of what we have seen with our eyes. So when the eye sees something, and that's because light is reflected and enters the eye and stimulate our sense organs, and then we become aware of an object out there. A mental image arises. So that mental image arising is called the rupa. And at the same time, it triggers a chain reaction. Right? So this sense stimulation triggers a chain reaction, producing experience of eye perception. That means seeing, the process of seeing. It's experiential. And that leads to the awareness or consciousness of the object. Eye consciousness, and that is called Chakku Vijnana. Chakku Vijnana is really eye consciousness of an object out there. Okay? Usually here it is referring to a physical object with light reflected from the object that stimulates the sense organs, the eye. Okay? And when we talk about sense perceptions, we have 5 physical senses. So those 5 are the eye perception, Chakku Vijnana, ear perception, Sota Vijnana, nose perception, Ghana Vijnana, and tongue perception, Jiva Vijnana, and finally the body perception, Kaya Vijnana. These are 5 physical senses sensing the environment. Beyond these 5 physical senses, there is also the 6th sense, which is not sensing external. It is really an internal process. Mano Vijnana. This is cognition of sense perceptions. That means Mano Vijnana processes all the other Vijnana that was sensed from the environment. Okay, so it's Mano Vijnana is a bit different from the other 5 Vijnanas. And Mano Vijnana, as we mentioned previously, it has to do with categorized identification. That is, more clearly, it is not just Papancha, but it's Papancha Sanya Sanka. I'll show you later on what Bhante says about that. And then recognition, and that is labeling, calling it something, giving it a name of the mental image that was perceived. And finally, cognizing the whole thing as an experience. The word Dhamma means experience. I also want to point out one interesting thing about the translation of the word Dhamma. A lot of people say, oh, Dhamma means truth. No. Dhamma, the meaning of Dhamma does not mean truth. It is actually basically commonly referring to an experience. So when the Buddha taught Buddha Dhamma, what was he teaching? He was teaching from his experience. That's it. He wasn't teaching from some downloaded things from the heaven and spreading something from the heaven. He wasn't doing that. He was teaching from his experience as Prince Siddhartha becoming enlightened to become the Buddha. And when he became the Buddha, he realized so many things. So he was then sharing all this. So what he's sharing as the Buddha is his experience. That's why it's called Buddha Dhamma, the experience of the Buddha, his teachings. But many people use the word Dhamma to mean the truth. Well, the truth is a very absolute word. So, of course, many things he taught are true. But the point is the word Dhamma really means experience. So we have to remember that also. And quickly looking at the process of experience, activity in the environment stimulate our 5 physical senses, and then we begin to perceive what's going on. The Panchakanda is the process of perception. We now perceive what has been happening through the 5 senses. So the Vijnana is the perception of what was perceived. So if there's a dog out there, it's because light reflected from the dog entering the eye, a mental image of the dog arises. Okay, so that mental image is rupa, and this whole process produces Chakku Vijnana, or sight or seeing. And then, of course, there are the other 4 physical senses in addition to the seeing. Right? And then Mano process this. How does Mano process it? Mano actually take the mental image and refer to memory of past experience, categorize memory of fluid past. And memory is never stored in great detail. Of course, we can recall the detail, but normally when we think of something, we think of the generalized version, categorized, not very specific. So for example, if I hold this, what is it? Everybody will say, oh, it's a computer mouse. Now the thing is, how do you know it's a computer mouse? You have never seen this particular mouse before. It's my mouse. I've never shown this to anyone else openly. So how do you know it's a mouse? The point is, this looks like the thousands or the hundreds of mouse you have ever seen in your life. So it looks very similar. So it is categorized as mouse, computer mouse. That's how you can recognize this. That's why that process of having recognized it, that is an experience. It's called Dhamma. And based on categorized identification, creating concept. So now you have the concept of an entity. So if you've seen a dog, there is the concept of an entity of a dog out there. Okay. So the word dog is the nama we give to the mental image of that entity we've seen. Now this categorization, the short word is papancha, and it is popularly translated as mental proliferation. No, papancha does not directly refer to mental proliferation, but papancha causes mental proliferation. So papancha is really the cause of mental proliferation. Papancha by itself does not mean mental proliferation. It means categorized identification. Or the longer word, pancha sanya sanka, that is basically the categorized identification of objects perceived from the environment. So we're going to begin with recollections 3 to continue from there where we left off. And in the case of recollections number 3, we're going to look at what is papancha, what is mental proliferation, and how to handle mental proliferation with wisdom, because mental proliferation basically rises up, disturbs our mind, and then we become, we feel emotional, and we get hurt, or we get angry, or whatever, and then it basically, this emotional arising disturbs our mind. How can we deal with that? How can we handle that with wisdom? Okay. So when we talk about handling that, then we look at the cognition part. Conception, how the mind creates concept, and that is mano vijnana. The inputs from the 5 senses are then put together, and the mano processes it. Okay, and this processing is recognition, and giving it, identifying it based on memory of past experiences. What comes in to the mano is the perception. And basically what the mano does is cognition. So perception is what was perceived by the sense organs, and cognition is what was cognized by categorization of what was perceived. Now we begin with recollections 3 on mental proliferation. We're going to talk about what is papancha, what is mental proliferation, how to handle mental proliferation with wisdom. So let's review this process of experience again. Activity in the environment stimulate the 5 senses, and then Panchakanda makes us aware of individual objects out there, and that is the vijnana part. Right? As we see, the Panchakanda produce the mental image, and Chakku Vijnana is the perceiving the dog. So now the mind has the image of a dog. And with that image of the dog, the mind processes it. And there's also other senses coming into play. Right? Ear, nose, tongue, and body. So Mano basically processes all of them at the same time, right? Collectively. And referring them to memory, that process is papancha. But the correct term, the complete term is Papancha Sanya Sanka. Bhante will explain that in a moment. This is categorized identification, and the result is recognition, categorized identity of what was perceived through the sense organ. And then creating conception of the objective experience from 6 sensual realms, concept of a dog out there. Because in other words, it's no longer just processing the eye rupa, okay? No, only the mental image coming from the eye, but also all the other images, the sound we hear, the smell, the odor we smell, the flavors that we taste, and tangible things that we come into contact with physically. Putting it together, right? That complete compiling together is the objective experience. Now let's listen to what Bhante has to say about Papancha Sanya Sanka.
Papancha is really identification. Identification.
Is it the same as categorization then?
That is right. It is by categorizing that you identify.
Yeah.
That is the meaning of Papancha Sanya Sanka. Sanka is category. Papancha Sanya Sanka. It is by putting it into a category that you begin to identify.
Forming the objective experience. So objects in the environment are perceived through sense organs. Mental image arises as rupa. Mano processes it with categorized identification, Papancha Sanya Sanka, as explained by Bhante, and giving it a name or a label, nama. Now, Mano not only interprets, it also takes the other 5 physical senses plus its thoughts and put it all together. The thoughts are imagination, memory, expectations, and put it all together to form what is called the objective experience, phassa. And this is the objective experience of a world out there. That means now we're talking about the world, no longer talking about one object, but in totality. So the world out there, loka. This is experiencing. And what are we experiencing? Because we are interacting with the world, so we are experiencing our circumstances. Now let's take a look at Bhante's explanation. What is phassa? Right?
It's not only seeing, you use your other senses also. Hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. This is why you give something to a small baby. What does the baby do? Begin to touch it and shake it and throw it and do so many things. Why? To get all the information from all the senses. That is why. And so, it's only by getting all the information from the different senses that we begin to see it as an object that exists. We begin to see it as a chair that has a shape and not only color, but even when you touch, this is how it will feel, and everything is there when we see it as an object that is existing out there. So that is what is called salayatana. Salayatana means you are making use of all the senses. And pacha passo. Passa is usually translated as contact. Passa is not contact. Passa is, that is what is called cognition. To cognize something is to understand what it is. If it is, you say, this is a chair, that means That is a complete cognition. It's not just contact. And when you cognize something, what are you doing? That is called existential thinking. You are thinking of the existence of something. And this is not only just existential, it is an objective existence. The existence of an object.
So Bhante mentioned about awareness of the objective experience. Now Bhante used the term, he oversimplified it, I think, I'm sorry to say that. He oversimplified it by saying it forming an object. So it gives the impression that now he's talking about an object. No, it's not really that. The word object really means the world. Here in this case, the object is the world. So the objective experience is experiencing the world out there. So normal human mind is locked on to existential thinking. Normally, we think in existential terms. If we can't see, hear, smell, taste, or touch something, we don't believe it is true, That's how we normally think. So we constantly relate every experience in existential manner. That is our normal behavior, okay? So when you meditate and you train your mind, you will be able to see things in experiential manner. Now, referring to Paticca Samuppada, I'm not going to go to Paticca Samuppada, it's too long, but I've already done this in the past through a few of the sharings, but I'm just showing, at this point, the fourth stage of Paticca Samuppada is Nama Rupa. That is what we have covered so far. We have seen an object, the mental image arises, and a name is given, and then Nama Rupa of each of six individual sense objects are put together. Okay, what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and cognize. So Mano combines, correlates, and consolidates all six sense fields, and this process of combining the six sensual fields is called Salayatana. Okay, so that is experiencing the six sense fields, and then having experienced the six sense fields, then it produced the experience of the object. So in this case, when Bhante say object, he's not talking about one object, he's talking about the world, that object. Okay, so cognition is the becoming conscious of the objective experience, the experience of the world out there. And basically this creates the concept of the existence of the world. That's why we are often locked on to thinking of existence. This objective experience becomes our experience of our circumstances because we are interacting with the world. So that interaction is our circumstances. So up to this point in blue of the Paticca Samuppada, that is the cognitive process. This is the work of the Mano. Now let's listen to Bhante explain this existential thinking, experiencing a world out there.
It's not only seeing, you use your other senses also. Hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. This is why you give something to a small baby. What does the baby do? Begin to touch it and shake it and throw it and do so many things. Why? To get all the information from all the senses. That is why. And so, it's only by getting all the information from the different senses that we begin to see it as an object that exists. We begin to see it as a chair that has a shape and not only color, but even when you touch, this is how it will feel, and everything is there when we see it as an object that is existing out there. So that is what is called salayatana. Salayatana means you are making use of all the senses. And pacha passo. Passa is usually translated as contact. Passa is not contact. Passa is, that is what is called cognition. To cognize something is to understand what it is. If it is, you say this is a chair, that means that is a complete cognition. It's not just contact. And when you cognize something, what are you doing? That is called existential thinking. You are thinking of the existence of something. And this is not only just existential, it is an objective existence. The existence of an object.
So Papancha Sanyasaka now creates this categorized identification, putting then Salayatana, putting them together, and Passa recognizing this objective experience. And that is our existential thinking. So Mano interprets our circumstances. This objective experience is our circumstances. Interprets it with judgment, labels, classification of the experience, the objective experience, what is happening in the world out there. So when Mano interprets them, it actually gives rise to unconscious repressed memories arising. Anusayam. The Buddha called this Anusayam. And this unconscious repressed memory arise. When they arise, they are coming from memory and they are emotional in nature. And when they arise, they begin to distort our perception of reality. They begin to dilute the interpretation of our circumstances. And that process of distorting and diluting is called mental proliferation. Right? So in other words, Papancha gives rise to mental proliferation. Papancha itself is not mental proliferation. It is because we interpret it, categorize it, classify it, then the memory recalls certain aspect of it, the emotional aspect of it rises, that is the unconscious repressed memory. Everything we have experienced, there is some emotional component programmed into our memory, and that is called repressed memory, and that has become unconscious. It is called repressed and not suppressed. You see, when we experience something, let's say we eat an apple and oh, it's a bit sour. Why is apple so sour? And I eat then later we eat the second one, it's still sour. So now we have a negative perception of how this current batch of apple tastes. They're very sour. And that is then remembered silently. We don't think about it anymore. We put it away. That's why it's called repress. Repress is like a memory that you just put it to sleep, you know, and Bhante actually calls it sleeping. Right? So it's really just leave it alone. Suppress is different. When we think of something, we get upset with it. We want to get rid of it, get rid of that thought, you know, suppress. For example, at night when you're trying to sleep and you close your eyes, you take a deep breath, you're feeling very comfortable, and suddenly the imagination in the mind pops up, telling you, oh, tomorrow I got to attend an interview. I'm not sure how I'm going to do with that interview. You know, I already prepared for it, but now I'm worried about it. And that worry makes you unable to sleep and you're really very upset. Now, suppress means you got very upset and you said, go away, go away. You want that thought, that memory to go away. That is trying to suppress it. See, when you try to suppress a thought, when you try to suppress a memory, it fights back. So it will not go away. The more you say go away, the more it fights you. So that doesn't happen. On the other hand, if you take a passive attitude, oh, you're thinking, okay, tomorrow I have to attend an interview. Never mind, I already prepared for it. Okay, no problem. I'll take care of it tomorrow. It's time to sleep. Let go. That is letting it go, letting the memory go off. Let the memory sleep. So you basically repress. This is repressing the memory. You don't think about it anymore. And then you go to sleep and you sleep happily. So all that goes in. Maybe in the middle of the night, that repressed memory arises and wakes you up as a dream, or it manifests as a dream, or it wakes you up. Oh my God, tomorrow I got this interview. I'm not sure whether my preparation is good enough or not. That is repressed memories arising. Okay, so and it distorts our perception of reality. Even though I prepared for it, now I start to think, oh, maybe I didn't prepare well enough. And some people, when they get disturbed, even I experience that. I prepare for a sharing, I prepare like today's sharing and things like that. In the middle of the night, I wake up thinking about it too much. Then I get up and do something about it, okay? So, it distorts our perception of reality because I think I didn't do good enough. I want to make some changes and so on. And that thinking is mental proliferation. And that triggers an emotional chain reaction from the chitta. And that causes us all kinds of suffering. Right? So this is really how mental proliferation arises. I will look at it further, how mental proliferation arises from the unconscious mind. Okay, we'll look at that. So let's get back to Paticcasamuppada. So now Phassa is aware of this concept of the world out there, our experience of our circumstances. And basically this concept of the objective experience is our circumstances, what we interact with the world. So it's our circumstances. So when cognitive process mano interprets our circumstances with judgment, labels and classification, unconscious repressed memory, anusayam, they arise. And this distorts our perception of reality, and it dilutes the interpretation of our circumstances. That means it corrupts the way we think about what is going on with our circumstances, corrupts our perception of the objective experience out there. And this corruption is the mental proliferation. We'll touch on that later. What is the nature of mental proliferation? We'll talk about that later. And that triggers this emotional chain reaction, making us feel angry or upset or confused, hurt, right? All these emotions arising. And this feeling is part of the next part of Paticcasamuppada. This is the Vedana. Right? That feeling is Vedana. And this is the beginning of the affective process in the Paticcasamuppada. Okay, I won't go further with Paticcasamuppada. Let's refocus back on Anusayam, unconscious repressed memory arising. So there, and this is Bhante's words. What happened is there was one time many years ago, I was supposed to give a Dhamma talk on Majjhima Nikaya 18, and that is the Madhupindika Sutta. And there was a lot of talk about Anusayam and Papancha, Sanya Sanka, and that's how I got these translations from Bhante. I was asking him to help me, and he translated certain terms. So here he translated a phrase in the sutra, and there his translation is, there are unconscious repressions or anusayam arising, producing thoughts that shape our beliefs. Well, here shape could also be distorting, disturbing, right? And opinions, right? So adjusting our thoughts, our beliefs and opinions. And these influence our decision to act, our actions, our behavior, and this may lead to disagreements and conflicts and troubles and problems, right? So this is what Bhante translated from that. And the 7 are, I won't read the Pali term, I'll just say it out. Passion or greed. This has to do with lobha. And then ill will or hatred to something that is unpleasant. Passion and greed is towards something pleasant, right? Ill will and hatred is towards something unpleasant. That is like dosa. And the rest is connected with moha, right? Delusions or some people say ignorance, but delusion basically. Your views and beliefs start to arise. You start to have certain biased thinking, right? Views and beliefs are biased thinking, your own personal bias. And it may create some confusion, vacillation, perplexity, and even doubt arising. And because of that, you are defensive. You're always defensive about I, me, or mine. So the ego and conceit arises. And that creates the delusion of existence. I exist because the I, me, or mine is strong. So I exist. And therefore, this is really avijja, right? Delusions. Some call it ignorance. And Bhante calls it not knowing or unknowing or insentience. So these are the 7 anusayam arising. I won't go into these details, but be aware that they arise and disturb the mind. And they produce our thoughts and reactions rooted in lobha, dosa, moha. Lobha is our passion and lust and greed towards something pleasant. Dosa is ill will, hatred, anger, aversion towards something unpleasant. And moha is either unknowing or ignorance, delusion, confusion, doubt, and so on. So that's what anusayam will produce. Right, so now listen to Bhante Punnaji's explanation of anusayam.
Anusaya really means saya. Saya means sleeping. Anusaya means sleeping. That means, what is the meaning of sleeping? This is what Sigmund Freud called repression. That means people begin to forget things, and once it is forgotten, you don't even know that you are having certain things. You are not aware of it. And that kind of sleeping is what is called repression. And so, what is called psychoanalysis of Sigmund Freud was to bring out these hidden, repressed things, bring it out and to become aware of it. What is unconscious is made conscious. So to make the unconscious conscious is what the Buddha, what the Sigmund Freud did, and that is what the Buddha did also, ultimately, to make the unconscious conscious. That unconsciousness is what is called avijja. And so, our mind is normally in an unconscious state. Most of the time, although we think we are conscious, most of the time we are acting unconsciously. This is the point. And this is why Sigmund Freud used the analogy of the iceberg. When the iceberg is kept in the water, it's like a piece of ice you put in the water, it begins to float. What is out of the water is only a small piece, the rest is inside the water. So in the same way, our mind, when we say we are conscious, we are only a small piece is conscious. The rest is all happening unconsciously.
So Bhante explained about anusayam. Now let's try to understand how it arises. The mind, as Bhante mentioned, the mind is like an iceberg. There is a little part of it that is above the surface, and that is the conscious mind. Then majority of it is below the surface, that is the subconscious and unconscious mind. So what is above the surface, where the mind is clear? The first aspect of it is, this is the mano part of the mind. You see, the chitta is always below the surface. This is the mano part of the mind. Present moment awareness. This is sati. That means you are aware moment to moment, something happening. Okay, so that is sati. That is your conscious mind doing that. And then clear comprehension. Now you understand what is happening, whatever is going on, what exactly is going on, and that is sampajana, clear comprehension. And then you understand how it came to be, the cause and effect, whatever is going on that causes other things happening. So that is discernment. You're able to discern right from wrong, good from bad, and then seeing how they are interconnected, that is reasoning. So discernment is seeing right from wrong, good from bad, right? Helpful from harmful. Reasoning is understanding the connection between cause and effect. So that is reasoning, and this is wise attention, yoniso manasikara. So these are the three aspects of the conscious mind which are very clear, right? They are not disturbed by anything. Then there are also others. Logic, 1 + 1 is 2. Critical thinking, to be able to analyze, right? When you drink a cup of coffee, it is too sweet, and then you realize I put too much sugar in it. That is understanding what has happened, okay? Then you want to achieve a result, so you put your mind into it and your energy into it, willpower and aspiration, and finally you have clear intention and decision what you're going to do. I'm going to take dinner now. So that is clear awareness, conscious mind doing that. So what's below the surface? The unconscious mind. Now, that word there, perception, that is not the same as perceiving. Perceiving is the vijnana part. You are aware of objects in the environment. But when you begin to interpret it, you form a certain idea what it is, a certain concept, a certain thought. You see a cup of coffee, you don't just see a cup of coffee, you think about, oh, this cup of coffee, that brand I don't like. And that is perception already, is no longer perceiving. What you perceive is just a cup of coffee. That is what you perceive. But you begin to think, oh, this brand, I don't like this. That's perception with interpretation, and also opinions, judgment, and a whole lot of other things. Most importantly is the bottom there, imagination, memory, expectation. Imagination of what's going to come next. Usually imagination is always related to the future, something that hasn't happened yet, right? So you have fears and worries about something that hasn't happened yet. Memory is related to something that is in the past. You start to get angry or resentful about something that happened in the past, right? And expectation is the present moment. You have certain discontent, something you're not satisfied with. You want to change that here and now. So that is expectations. Therefore, all these form repressed memories, and they begin to arise. See, you're not constantly thinking about these things. These are repressed. They are sleeping, okay? So Bhante says this sleeping, so it is repressed. It's not something you are consciously thinking about. What you are consciously thinking about is the blue part. The pink part is usually thoughts that you have put away, repressed memories, and they arise. When they arise, they then disturb your thinking, and this disturbance is caused by anusayam. Repressed memories arising, there are 7 characteristics I mentioned earlier, and they produce mental proliferation and cognitive distortions and a few other things. I'm going to explain more about what they produce later. This mental proliferation and cognitive distortion create an emotional chain reaction, and therefore these unconscious repressed memories arising disturb us, and they arise and trigger our thinking and our decisions. So this is all very emotional in nature, and when they arise, they disturb the mind, and they are called mental stressors. And they are all rooted in lobha, dosa, moha. If you're thinking of something pleasant, you have lobha. If you're thinking of something unpleasant, you will have it rooted as dosa. And sometimes you confuse about whatever is going on, or you are self-centered about it, that's moha. So basically, all this mental proliferation are arising rooted in lobha, dosa, and moha. And then they produce all kinds of suffering. It can lead to depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, psychological disorder, chronic illnesses, mental or bodily health issues. All these are the suffering, the dukkha part, okay? So, reviewing this anusayam, right, there are 4 areas where these anusayam arise. The first is mental proliferation we spoke about. Now, these 4 areas have a lot of overlaps. They are not completely different. They are, in fact, majority of them are really overlapping. So I'm going to explain what the 4 are. First is what we call mental proliferation. Okay, this is basically the mind going into rapid spinning. Spins out into random thoughts. The mind going everywhere, left, right, and center. Picking up stories or creating stories, interpreting beyond what was actually experienced. That means going beyond what is really the reality of what's happening. You start to think beyond that. So you have to attend an interview tomorrow. The reality is you have already prepared for it. But now you're thinking, oh, maybe my preparation is not good enough. So, in Chinese, we have a term called add salt, add vinegar, right? So basically, that's what your mind is doing, right? Blending it with whatever garbage that pops up. So that is mental proliferation. The second one is cognitive distortion. Now, cognitive distortion is a bit more specific. Something happens and your mind is now specifically targeting a situation which is not the real situation, but you think so. There's a lot of assumptions involved. It inaccurately interpret the reality with much assumptions. A lot of assumptions gone in, distorting the actual experience. So your mind now makes a lot of assumptions and form opinions and all that, judgments, right? So it's a very judgmental mind. So cognitive distortion is that. It's a bit more specific, but there's a lot of overlap with mental proliferation. Half the time, cognitive distortion appears with mental proliferation. Now, mental proliferation and rumination are very similar with one small difference. Rumination is like stuck in high gear. You're stuck in a certain thing. It's a repetitive and persistent, locked in replaying of negative thoughts. Right? Mental proliferation is negative thoughts are popping up everywhere and you're picking up all kinds of garbage and nonsense. Add salt, add vinegar. But rumination is now going deep into the rabbit hole. You're going deep into all the nonsense you're stuck with. You keep repeating that negative thought to yourself. I'm no good. Tomorrow, that interview, I'm going to fail. So you're stuck there. So it's a locked-in, stuck mode. And memories, and then also dwelling on the problem itself without finding solutions. So usually rumination means you keep focused on the negative aspect of the problem and you're not looking at solutions. You're not looking for solutions. Now, all these 3 are basically in the awake mode. But there is a 4th one when you're resting. It could happen to a lot of us during meditation. It is called default mode network. And there's a short acronym called DMN. Default mode network, DMN. Basically, it is repetitive autopilot of the mind drifting or daydreaming that is usually self-referential. And by default, we are self-centered. That means we are asking ourselves, am I good enough? How am I doing? Am I making progress in my job? Will my family members support me when I get old? So it's very much self-centered, okay? So as you can see, it's also got a lot of overlap with cognitive distortions and mental proliferation and rumination. So all four are overlapping. They are not discrete. They are overlapping. A big part of each and every one overlaps with the others. Okay, so I hope you understand. So there are four areas, four ways this anusayam arises to disturb us, producing these four different processes that disturb the mind severely. Okay, I'll just show you quickly cognitive distortion. I'm not going to explain much of it. So there's a list you can download. By the way, I'll just show you the name. Cognitive distortion is more specific because there's a lot of research done by a couple of cognitive psychologists. The most famous one is Aaron Beck, and then also Albert Ellis and a few others et al. So they have all chipped in their things. Some of them come up with 9 different categories. Some of them come up with 12. I collected all the different ones and put it together and added a couple of them myself and come up with a list of 21. This, you can download this complete list from that link. Don't worry, I'll give you the link at the end of today's sharing, so you will get the link. Okay, as you can see, there are 21 different things. Okay, so I'll go to the last one so that it's easier to go, because the last few are my additions. The last 3 I added it myself. Number 21, past orientation. Letting past experiences dictate our decisions. Every time we do something, in the past I did it like that, so I better keep doing it like that. Or in the past it didn't go wrong, so let's keep going. It won't go wrong because it never went wrong in the past, you know. So past orientation. The other one is this existential thinking plus other kinds of thinking, usually connected with religion. Believing is seeing. When you believe something, your mind will now look for proof that it exists. So people who have very strong belief in the existence of God, every little thing happening, they will then connect it with God. And then anything which disproves it, they ignore it. So rejecting evidence that contradicts one's belief and superstitions or expectations. Right? So you're always looking for proof, for something to prove that, oh, I believe in God, God exists. Take a simple example, typhoon. It comes, it wipes out the whole town, 100 people killed. Now, typhoon, everybody, even in law, even in insurance, the term is called act of God, right? So if you believe in God, you think, oh, God sends that typhoon. But the point is, if God is a loving God, why did 100 people die? Why did God kill the 100 people? Or 911, World Trade Tower was blown up by the acts of some insane people. Thousands of people died, right? So if God is a loving God, why did God allow thousands of people to die? But yet, people who believe in God will find all kinds of excuses to explain why these thousands of people died, right? Some of them are very kind people, good people, and yet they die. So people who keep trying to look for something to support their belief, and then anything that contradicts with their belief, they reject. Okay, that's number 20. Number 19, self-centeredness and personalization with I, me, or mine. You see, I put that in because this is really coming from Buddhism. When we experience something, we often connect with the self, upadana, and then it is I, me, or mine. When something happens, oh, it's trying to hurt me, and that kind of thing. So download that list and then you can go through it. I won't go much further. Now, Aaron Beck, one of the most famous cognitive psychologists who come up with his own list. You can actually Google to find his list. My list here is a combination of many different people, Aaron Beck, Albert Ellis, and a few others. Okay, he came up with what he called the cognitive triad. Triad means the three together. We have negative perceptions of ourselves. We have negative perceptions of the world, what Bhante called objective experience. Okay, and we have negative experience of future. These are the three areas we often connect the mind, link the mind, lock in. Okay, we are most oftenly worried about the future. That's why the future is mentioned here. Negative perceptions of oneself and one's world. Right? That is a combination of present and maybe some past. So download the list and see it for yourself and think about it. Now, there is an exercise you can do if you want. You look at all 21 of them. Maybe you can assign, start off, you can assign a number 1 to 5. 5 means strongest. That means you experience this the most. 1 means you hardly ever experience it. So look through the list of 21 and then identify which one applies to you the most. Okay, not everybody is different. Some people are oriented towards a certain thing. Some people are not so much on that. Okay, so download the list and go through it. Now, I want to share this very important part. The repressed memory, anusayam, it arises unconsciously from the unconscious and subconscious mind because of those earlier on that picture, those in pink. They arise without our choosing. We did not want them to arise. They just popped up. I'm trying to sleep and then suddenly I'm thinking about, I already prepared for tomorrow's interview. And yet I think about, tomorrow the interview, maybe what my preparation is not good enough. Did I choose to have that thought? No, it just popped up. And I didn't even know about it. It just came up and then it started to disturb me. Right? And we also cannot control it. We cannot remove it right away. We can do something about getting rid of it, but it doesn't get rid of it easily. We can relax, let it go. Right? By relaxing and letting it go and say, well, never mind, and go back to sleep, then it's okay, maybe that works, okay? But we cannot control it. We cannot just get rid of it right away. We have no control over this. We can't choose, we don't know when it's coming, and we have no control. Anicca, that's what it is. And when they arise, they become stressors to the mind and body. Like stress, in this case, is referring to the physical part, the body. Distress is the mental part, the psychological part. That's the mind. They disturb us one way or another. That's dukkha. So anicca, dukkha. And very often we are self-centered. Unconscious repressed memories are merely visitors. They come and they go. They are anicca. They come and they go. They are not me. They are not part of me. And yet we tend to personalize it. We start to think, why am I like that? Me, I, me, or mine. But the point is, these thoughts, any thought that arises in your mind is impersonal. Anatta. There is no self behind the arising. And while we do not have control over what, when, or how these unconscious thoughts arise, we do have the full freedom to choose our response. That means if we may not be able to stop something and it makes us feel angry or sad or stressing us, but learn to do something about that, the effects. Calm yourself down, relax if you're feeling stressed. We can choose our response, okay? And here is a very important sutra that is mentioned, and I'm using Bante's translation. It says, emotions dominate the world. Emotions create distress. Emotion is that one thing to which all are spellbound. Now, a lot of translators, they use the word chitta to say mind. So if you will notice that this is really the word chitta there. Now, those who use popular translation, they will be saying, mind dominates the world. Mind creates distress. Mind is that one thing to which all are spellbound. If I say that, it's kind of difficult to comprehend. But if I say emotions dominate the world, emotions create distress, mental suffering. Emotion is that one thing to which all are spellbound. Because the Buddha used the word chitta. So it's talking about emotions. And this is the translation by Bhante Punnaji. Okay? Another translation by Bhante Punnaji. Okay? Whatever harm one enemy may do to another, or one hater to another, it's one's ill-directed emotions that inflict upon oneself a greater harm. This is a direct translation from Bhante on Dhammapada verse 42. So this phrase, Micha Pani Hitam, I don't know how to pronounce it correctly, and Chittam, the word chitta is there, emotions, ill-directed emotions. I couldn't find one word that really, one Pali word that really says what mental proliferation is, because every translator will say, oh, papancha. Papancha is not mental proliferation. But here, perhaps this is the closest to mental proliferation, okay? From imagination, memory, expectation. And we become under the spell of our emotional excitement. So this perhaps is the closest. I'm not saying it is. Unfortunately, my realization or my thinking that this is perhaps the closest phrase to mental proliferation, this came after Bhante Punnaji passed away. So I'm sorry, I have no way of verifying it with Bhante Punnaji. But this is just my opinion. This phrase here is probably the closest to what mental proliferation is. And when I say mental proliferation, be aware, I'm actually using that as a general term to refer to the 4 ways, right, anusayam arise. So in other words, I'm not just talking about specifically mental proliferation. It's also a combination of cognitive distortion, also rumination, and default mode network. So it's any of the 4. So now I use the word mental proliferation. If I don't qualify it, then I'm referring to any of the 4 combined, right? So basically this is the closest. As you can see, the word chitta is there. So chitta is the emotional mind. And a lot of people try to figure out, why did this anusayam arise? You know, what is the root cause of anusayam? Now, don't try to figure it out. The whole thing is we have no control over the arising. We cannot predict when it is coming up. We cannot get rid of it when it arises. We can only deal with it by responding to it so that we reduce the effect it has on us. And therefore, Bhante taught us very well. Our intelligence, the purpose of human thinking, here he means the purpose of human intelligence is not to discover the truth, but to solve problems. So if you experience mental proliferation of some sort, learn how to deal with it. Don't worry about how it arises. It's like what the Buddha said, somebody shot you with an arrow. Now learn to deal with the pain and suffering you're experiencing from the arrow. Don't try to figure out who shot the arrow. Why did he shoot the arrow? You know, then you are shooting yourself, repeatedly shooting yourself with arrow over and over again. Somebody shot one arrow to you. It hurt you for a moment. And then you keep thinking, why did he do that? Did I do something wrong? The mind goes into mental proliferation. Then you are shooting yourself with the arrow over and over and over again. Let it go. Solve the problem. Learn how to respond to it. We have no control over when or how it arises, but we have control over how we respond to it, okay? All right, I'm going to show you another verse. This is a very important part. Dhammapada verse number 1. Earlier on, we looked at some verses where the Buddha used the word chitta. Now, the Buddha used the word mano, right? So there is a distinction, there's a difference. So Bhante Punnaji translated it as cognition. Cognition precedes all experiences. That means our experience of the world, the objective experience, is because of the way we interpret everything we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. So this is really papancha sanya sanka with mano. So the mano doing the papancha sanya sanka, and therefore we experience the world. So that's really what it is. The objective experience we spoke about. And cognition predominates and creates them. So here, basically, the cognition, the way we interpret, will affect how we think, right? And what happens to us, whether we're going to do this or we're going to do that, how we respond to it, the way we think about it. right? And it creates our experience. That means it actually influences whatever is happening around us, whatever we're experiencing. So if we carry bad thoughts or negative thoughts or harmful thoughts with vicious thoughts, and then it's like a pain will follow. It's like the carriage that follows the animal, okay? The wheel that follows on the cart that follows the cow that drags it. So this is really the Buddha using mano, because it's talking about mano responsible for papancha sanya sangka, and this papancha sanya sangka leads to salayatana and pasa, and now we have our circumstances, right? So therefore mano is the one that precedes all this, our circumstances, because of the way we interpret the world around us. Now let's listen to Bhante explain a very quick one on what is the pure mind that is being polluted by external influences, and what should we do about it. And let's see what Bhante says.
After Sigmund Freud, a new school of psychology came up called cognitive psychology. These cognitive psychologists began to realize that this process of mind called cognition is the starting point where cognition is the process by which we interpret our circumstances. It is the way we interpret what we see with our eyes, or hear with our ears, smell with our nose, taste with our tongue, or touch with our body. The way we interpret our circumstances is what starts the emotion arousal. And the brain begins to think and interpret, give meaning to what was seen, heard, smelled, tasted, touched. And it is that meaning that is given that starts the emotion. So by changing the meaning, the emotion can be removed. This is what the cognitive psychologists came to know.
So earlier on we saw Dhammapada verse number 1, and now the counterpart, the verse number 2. And here it is the opposite, right? Cognition precedes all experiences, cognition predominates and creates them with virtuous thought or helpful thoughts. If one speaks or acts, happiness follows, just as one's shadow, inseparable shadow, right? So here it's talking about thinking how you're going to respond to your problem. If you think clearly, think with wisdom, yoniso manasikara, how to respond to the problem, then you will be able to handle the problem. You may not solve all problems in the world, but at least you will feel better, help you to feel better. Sometimes you can't just solve the problem, but you can make yourself feel better, live through it, endure it with a bit of wisdom and a bit of compassion. Right? Sometimes not all problems can be solved. Some problems, they are permanent. Like for example, a very dearly beloved relative who has been responsible for keeping the family well financed and all that. Let's say a grandfather with a lot of money, and therefore the poor brothers and sisters are able to get education. Now grandfather passed away. Nobody is going to give your brothers and sisters money to continue with the education. You can't, that problem is there. You cannot solve that problem, but you can find another solution, another way of helping your brothers and sisters. So that's what it means, okay? So now let's take a quick review. how can we help ourselves? If we can, solve the problem. If we can't, change the way we think about the problem, right? Or the way we respond to the problem. So that is to make use of your conscious mind, the blue part. The first thing, of course, is sati. To be aware of what is happening here and now. Present moment awareness, sati. And then to have clear comprehension, fully understand what is going on. What are the situations and what are the building blocks to what is going on? And so have an understanding of what is happening, sampajana. And then think about the cause and the effect, that is the reasoning. Think about what is helpful, harmful, solution, how you can solve the problem, or how you can make yourself feel better. If you can't get rid of the problem, then at least you can help yourself to experience less suffering, right? Reducing the suffering. So sati, sampajana, yoniso manasikara. That's really the solution to handle these mental proliferations. Okay, one of the important things is meditation, but I want to share this with you. A lot of people have a misunderstanding of meditation, especially in the Western world. Now I'm going to show you what is meditation, and there are many different types of meditation, not only Buddhist meditation. I'm not talking about Buddhist meditation here. So let's take a look at that first.
Literally hundreds of different forms of meditation. The word meditation you can liken to sports. There are many different kinds of sports. There are many different kinds of meditation.
And strictly speaking, most of them are not mindfulness. There's transcendental meditation, which the Beatles got into while writing the White Album. The idea here is to repeat a mantra, a word or sound, until you transcend thought entirely. Then there's dynamic meditation, which is supposed to break old thought patterns. You may recognize it from coverage of the Rajneeshpuram community. Most religions have some kind of practice that could be called meditation, quietly contemplating scripture or forms of ritual prayer intended to bring you closer to God. Some of the oldest forms of meditation come from early Hinduism. According to tradition, around 500 BC, the Buddha studied these techniques, but then he added his own spin.
He systematically developed a new meditation technique that is called the Satipatthana meditation.
This is the traditional form of mindfulness meditation, one step on the Eightfold Path to Enlightenment that the Buddha taught his followers. The goal isn't to get closer to the divine or to empty your mind. It's to pay attention.
Sati means attention. Upa means inside, and Thana means to keep. Satipatthana simply means to keep your attention inside.
So the Buddha used the word bhavana, and this is Bhante's translation of the term bhavana. He said, it is by being conscious all the time that we can control our emotions. The constant practice of being conscious is what the Buddha called development or bhavana. In this case, Bhante was referring to development of the mind. Okay, well, it's mano and chitta, calming and taming the chitta, and cultivating and sharpening the mano. Okay, and therefore, Bhante used the word conscious. That means stay in the conscious zone. Don't allow the unconscious part, the anusayam, disturb you. Focus on the conscious zone. And those three important terms, sati, sampajana, yoniso manasikara. And that will help us. So meditation is helpful. But you've seen there are many different types of meditation. Right? One of them is transcendental meditation. Now, transcendental meditation basically is getting people to think of a certain word or phrase which does not is not connected to their life. That means it's something neutral, and then use that word or phrase to calm themselves down. And that is transcendental meditation, and that calming down is transcending. Okay, so that's a different type of meditation developed by Mahasi something. I forgot the name. Anyway, then there's also the other one developed by another Indian guru. All these very hyperactive, get yourself all worked up and then stop and then close your eyes. And that's how they think meditation is. Get yourself worked up and then stop, close your eyes. That's also not Buddhist meditation. Then there is a religious meditation, but actually religious meditation is not meditation. It is contemplation. They keep thinking about God, the virtues of God, And Buddhists have something similar. We think of Buddhanusati and all that. You see, these guided forms of meditation are good for you to embrace what has been taught. But in terms of really helping you solve problems, they have maybe limited compared to mindfulness meditation. I'm not saying they are not effective, but I'm saying mindfulness meditation is by far the most effective, Satipatthana. And you heard in that video, Bhante Saranapala mentioned the translation of the meaning of Satipatthana, which is basically exactly Bhante Punnaji's translation. A lot of people don't accept Bhante Punnaji's translation of Satipatthana. But now you see even Bhante Saranapala had exactly the same translation. Sati means attention. Upa means inside or within, bringing it in. Tana means to keep or to place, to focus. So to place your attention within. And Bhante Punnaji actually used one word which actually beautifully summarizes it, introspection. From the two root word intro and spection. Intro means bringing things inside. Intro. So a person who keeps to himself and doesn't mix around very well is an introvert. Right? The opposite of an introvert is an extrovert. So intro is bringing it in. Extro is facing outwards. So meditation is never facing outwards, it's always in. Right? Even open eye meditation is not looking at what's going on, but it's using the senses to just focus on the steps in front of you. So introspection. Intro means bringing it in. Spection comes from the word inspection, observing the four foundations. So Satipatthana by far is the best solution to deal with mental proliferation. Now, I give you the simplest explanation of mindfulness. Okay, this is from Dr. Jon Kabat-Zinn, the founder of mindfulness-based stress reduction. He says, mindfulness is basically the moment-to-moment non-judgmental awareness cultivated by paying attention on purpose in the present moment. Very simple, short and sweet. Moment to moment. We are not talking about the past, the present, the future. Even the present doesn't exist. I'll give you a simple example why it is moment to moment and it is not present. We talk about present moment. The moment you talk about present moment, that present moment is gone already. It's the past already. Classic example. How can we understand this? You're standing on a stream, very shallow stream, maybe just ankle deep. You look up river, water coming down. And you look down river, water gone. Down the stream, the water is gone. Up the stream, water coming towards you. That water that is coming towards you hasn't reached you yet. So that is the future. That water down the stream is gone already. That's the past. Where you are standing is the present. But which volume of water is the present? As the water touches your feet, it flows off. So the moment it becomes present, it's gone. Downstream already, right? Every volume of water that passes through your feet, that present moment becomes the past already. Just like time. If you think about time, there is no so-called present moment. You can't lock in, you can't fix it. It's moment to moment. So as you breathe, every breath is a moment-to-moment breathing. So if you meditate with your breath, it is a moment-to-moment breathing. Right? So that's why it's moment-to-moment, non-judgmental, because the judgment leads to papancha, sanya, sanka, which eventually leads to mental proliferation. Papancha is not mental proliferation as we discussed. Now I hope you understand why papancha is not mental proliferation, but it is the cause of mental proliferation. So non-judgmental, awareness, sati, sampajana, be aware of what's going on, right? And this is cultivated by paying attention, the sati part, sati and sampajana on purpose, right? So there is a purpose to this paying attention in the present moment. Right? So it's really not really focusing on present moment, so to speak. It's moment to moment awareness. Okay, so that's what Dr. John Kabat-Zinn has translated the word mindfulness. Let's look at the practice of mindfulness meditation, simply put. Let's keep it very simple. I'm not going to talk about meditation, but basically the introspection and the bhavana, which is the cultivation or the development of mind. If we practice Satipatthana meditation, it helps us relax the body, calm the mind. And that helps us to cultivate wise attention. So the purpose of practicing Satipatthana Bhavana is to help yourself calm down, become more relaxed and calm. And when you're calm, you're experiencing this stillness of mind. Then upekkha, and then you are able to see what's going on and understand better, and then you will be able to look at things with a wise attention, on purpose, wise attention. Okay, so this introspection, Satipatthana, help us to embrace every experience without judgment and to pay attention purposefully in the present moment. Okay, now I have this practicing Satipatthana or practicing introspection 24/7 continuously. That means moment to moment, keep doing this. Okay, it is not something you do in meditation. So this is not the meditation part. This is the day-to-day 24/7 living part. When we perceive activities in our environment, pay attention and be introspective, how it affects us. And bringing your attention inwards, observe how it changes the body because of the stress hormones that are released with stressors or stressful conditions, and how they feel in terms of comfort, discomfort, agitation, and so on. So the first one is Kayanupassana. The second one is Vedananupassana, right? And then how it affects our emotion. This is, if it is mental proliferation, it hurts us. It causes the mind to be disturbed. Arousal of emotional excitement. Chittanupassana, chitta, emotions. Chittanupassana. And finally, Dhammanupassana, how the mind forms thoughts and creates intentions of what we're going to do, right? Conception. So these are the so-called four foundations of mindfulness. Bhante Punjaji calls it the four focuses of introspection. So when you introspect, focus on these four things, how you are affected by it. And then you can understand, if you know what the problem is, you are already halfway to solving it. But if you are not introspective, you are not aware you are being hurt by all this, you just take it for granted and you don't think about it, you're far from solving it, right? So by being aware, by being introspective, being aware of these four focuses of introspection, you are already halfway to solving it, because it helps you cultivate wise attention, helps you focus on what matters most, right? That is the sampajana part, and helps you to think about, say, focusing moment to moment, that is the sati part. Then focusing on what matters most and how things come to be to affect you, and that is the sampajana part. And then understanding the cause and effect and what you can do to help yourself, discernment and critical thinking, all this will help you find solutions. Okay. Introspection makes us conscious of this vicious cycle I'm going to show you in a moment, okay? And learn to relax. Do not react unmindfully. And refrain from personalizing the experience. This is forming judgments about yourself relative to yourself. And finally, refrain from judgment of any kind. Focus on relaxation. If something is hurting you, just focus on relaxing. Right? Don't fight it. Right? So, do not react unmindfully. Focus on relaxation. Right? Now, I teach this 3-step self-compassion to a lot of people in the prisons to help them, because in the prison they're always suffering. So I say to them, when you are hurt and you're feeling stressed, practice this 3-step self-compassion. First, when something hurts you and arouses your emotions, or you feel stress, your body is flooded with hormones and now all kinds of tensions in your body. Pause. Do not react. Allow time for this emotional excitement to calm down. Allow time for the anxiety to calm down, because these are the two things that most happen in our mind when we are stressed. And not only that, when we are stressed, it's because of a lot of hormones flooding through our body. Allow time for the hormones to subside. So that's pause. And then relax. Take a deep breath. Relax the body. So when you're able to relax the body, now you begin to calm the mind. Consciously calm the mind. So compose the mind to be ready to respond. Only when your body is adequately relaxed and your mind is adequately calm are you able to find a solution to whatever is stressing you. Then think whatever is stressing you. Introspect and ask yourself, right? Purposefully focus on helpful and beneficial response to the problem. And this ability to focus on beneficial and helpful solution to the problem is Yoniso Manasikara. This is your conscious mind doing it, not allowing the subconscious mind, the mental proliferation to keep disturbing you. Okay. Now I talk about this vicious cycle I mentioned earlier. Things are happening around us and we experience things happening, the objective experience, okay, the phassa, and how we perceive our circumstances. We begin to interpret it. And unfortunately, the anusayam pops up from time to time because we are judgmental, we interpret it, right? And that produces a lot of stressors, arousing our emotions, creating mental distress, and it's a problem, creating threats and conflicts, or it is a lot of uncertainty, creating confusion. And we react unmindfully. We often react without thinking. That causes the body to be uncomfortable because of the hormones, and causes the mind to be disturbed because of the emotional, the anusayam popping up, and the mental proliferation. And therefore, it creates this emotional chain reaction, and leading to depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, psychological disorder, chronic illnesses, and health issues. All this is very harmful. This is suffering, dukkha, 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 okay? So what can we do about it? Most of the time it's because we reacting unmindfully. When something happens, we fight it or we do something. That's why we ended up creating the fight or flight reaction. Pause, relax, and think. So when something happens, first thing you do, don't react, pause first and relax. And when you do that, you are then able to apply sati and sampajana. Sorry. You're able to apply sati, right? Present moment awareness, sampajana, right? Clear comprehension. And then using your wisdom, Yoniso Manasikara, and think of ways and means that can be helpful. So when you're able to do that, you're helping yourself, right? And you're not letting the mental proliferation hurt you. And then practice this satipatthana because of introspection. And when you're able to do this, your body becomes more comfortable. Relaxation of the body. your mind becomes more calm, emotional composure. So from vicious cycle of emotions, you are now transforming it into virtuous cycle of composure. Okay, so now you're more relaxed and you're able to think of the solution to solve your problem because you're practicing so-called mindfulness, introspection, relaxing the body and calming the mind, and that helps you build resilience, the ability to withstand a problem. Okay, so resilience is helping you to cultivate healthy body, peaceful mind, caring heart, joyful spirit. And this is really how we can deal with it. We cannot solve every problem in the world, but we must learn how we can respond to it. And pause, relax, and think is one of the easiest quick fix response. Maybe you can't solve every problem with that, but at least it can help you become more calm. You stay more healthy, more peaceful, and then you feel better, joyful spirit. Okay. So with that, I end my presentation on recollections number 3. You can now download the PDF presentation slides of this whole sharing. So look through it using that link there. And you can also download the table of cognitive distortions from Aaron Beck, Albert Ellis et al. Okay. Now this video is only presenting to you the recollections number 3. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. When you view through this video and look through the download of the slides, as soon as a question pops up in your mind, quickly write it down. Don't try to memorize it. Quickly jot down your question. Jot down your doubt. Jot down something you want clarified, right? Or jot down a comment you may have. Whatever, just jot it down as you watch the video. Don't wait for the end of it. Just go through it. Right? You may even want to go through the video 2 or 3 times. It's up to you. And then we will meet by Zoom for question and answer. And this is the format I'm going to do in future. I will pre-record the recollections and then you can look at it. Hopefully it will be done a few days in advance or 1 week in advance if possible. But this time, because I'm flying off on Friday, we don't have much time. Friday Malaysian time, so we'll do it on Thursday morning Malaysian time. So Thursday morning 9 a.m. Malaysian time, which is about 1 a.m. in London, and 5 p.m. the day before in US Pacific, and that is Los Angeles area, San Francisco area. So whatever country you're in now, if your country is not listed there, then check your UTC timing and then adjust it, and then we will meet. The link is there. This link is the invitation. So you click on it, an invitation will pop up with the link of the actual Zoom session. Right? The invitation has some explanation. So that's why I only give you the link to the invitations. Right? So click on, key in that link in your laptop or your phone or whatever, and then you can then get the invitation and connect to the Zoom. So if you are not able to attend the Zoom according to the schedule and you have the questions, please email to me in advance. I will deal with the questions during the Q&A. I will open up every email and answer the questions as much as possible during the Q&A. If you don't have time to look at this video and you will look at it later after the Q&A, okay, never mind. If you have any questions after that, send me an email. So I have my email there. I have my Facebook link there. If you are using Facebook, you can message me, Messenger. Otherwise, you can just send me an email. Simple as that. I don't want to post my mobile number because, online it's risky. Then I get all kinds of scammers and spammers, okay? So just email me and then give me your questions. So I hope this has been helpful. Thank you very much for your attention. All right, so don't forget to write down all your questions. You probably need to review this video 2 or 3 times if you really want to have a more complete understanding, okay? And I'm sure there are some areas you need clarification, or some areas you may have some doubt, or some areas you just want to make some comments or whatever. So please do that, write it down, join us if you can. to the Q&A Zoom meeting. Thank you very much. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.